I love the One Piece trading card game, and I love to spend money on this game efficiently. Buying singles for your deck has always been the most cost-effective way of building a deck, but in this challenge, we throw that all away. Each week, I use a budget of $30 to open sealed product in the hopes of adding new cards to our deck. But since we can only play cards in our color, any cards we can't use, we can trade away. And there are additional buffs locked behind certain challenges. Join me in my journey as I rise up to become the King of the Pirates. You're watching One Piece from Scratch. Welcome back, Pirates! I really hope you enjoyed that new intro. I'm revamping a whole lot about this series to make it more exciting and engaging, and that was one of the aspects that I've worked really hard on. I've got a whole lot of exciting stuff lined up for this episode, as well as the future of the series, so let's not waste any time and let's just hop right into it. So, let's address one of the elephants in the room. As you can tell from the switch in the backgrounds, we are now playing Smoker. I think that Smoker has a lot easier of a time into a lot of the strategies that we see week to week, like Lucci and Dofi. I'll go over some more specific interactions in the Decklist portion of this video, but in general, we are able to punish a lot of the decks that play really low cost searchers by using our leader effect to bring them down to 0 cost, giving our leader 1k for the turn. Overall, I think that Smoker is just going to end up feeling a lot stronger than our ST14 Luffy, and it is just as accessible as Luffy, with the structure deck being readily available right now. And with that out of the way, let's talk about some other changes coming to the series. A huge revamp is going to be the bounty board. Essentially, I'm taking the previously established idea of guaranteeds being locked behind certain challenges, and I'm expanding it. First of all, I am going to update the guaranteed common and rare bounties to match the current pace of the series. These rewards in particular are just turning into cards that we're going to be using for off-meta tournaments, so I want to slow down the progression of these so we're not just walking into a new off-meta tournament with a new, completely constructed deck. So I think that really just defeats the purpose of the From Scratch series, so we're going to be modifying them slightly. In addition to that, I think the biggest change we're going to make is to introduce poneglyph bounties, which are kind of like series completion criteria. Just as you would need 4 road poneglyphs to find the final island, we have a series of very difficult events that I need to complete before I can crown myself the King of the Pirates. This by no means is a sign that I'm giving up on the series, but rather, we're going to set up some long-term goals that I can achieve over the span of the series. There are also going to be other kinds of bounties. There's going to be like a one-time claimable bounty as well as cipher bounties, but you'll have to wait until next week to hear more about that. If I explain every sort of bounty right now, I think this episode would just be information overload, and I feel like I'd need a completely separate episode to expand upon that, so unfortunately you're going to have to wait for that. With all that explanation out of the way, we've got a whole new strategy to try and build out, so let's hop right into the opening. Alright gamers, this is going to be a little bit more of a bittersweet opening. We are going to be switching strategies to the Smoker, so of course we're going to be opening the second Smoker structure deck, but we also have the starter deck 6, so this is going to be less of an exciting opening since we kind of already know it's scripted what's going to come in this. At least we come with a pack of PRB here, so this is mainly going to be more of a yap session, talking about why we're switching and then some of the things that come with switching our deck. We're going to start with the Sakazuki structure deck, just because that's something we haven't seen yet. So how did I even find this structure deck? Well, I went to the Mitsuya shop up in Arlington Heights. I do live kind of close to there, as I explained in the last video with the OP5 box. So this was part of the haul. I initially wanted to keep this for sealed collection, but I decided that, hey, I kind of want it now, need it now for the From Scratch series, so we're just going to be cracking it open here. Alright, so let's take this off. Now, we did trade for a card that's already in here, so we can just put that in our trade binder, but we'll see what else comes in here. So of course we get our Dawn, and our leader, absolutely terrible leader. At least we can play this for an off-meta night, so maybe we'll experiment with that when the time comes around. This reads, activate main once per turn, you can pay 3 Dawn, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 0. So that's really expensive. 3 Dawn for a KO 0 is super not efficient, so we're definitely not here for the leader, and if we do play this, it's going to be because it is black and it is typed navy. Not a whole lot going on there, but again, for off-meta, potentially decent. We've got the double attack Smoker, Dawn times 1. If there's a character with cost 0, this character gains double attack. Honestly, kind of funny. We could theoretically play this as just like a surprise tech. So this might be interesting. This might make its way into the deck, and of course, It's an SR, so we get 2 copies. We have the 5-drop 6k Monkey D. Garp. Activate main, trash 1 card from your hand. The rest of this character, KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Now, I know that this card made its way into, like, I think it was like Sabo or something, but are we going to be playing this? Probably not. I think I like Kobe better. This is activate main versus on play, but just don't need it. I feel like we can kind of go through some of these cards a little faster since we know we're not going to be playing a lot of it. The cards that we do know we're going to be playing, we'll make note of, so we'll just kind of go through. We've got some vanillas. Sengoku, give a character -4 cost, not really. Tashigi, here's one that we traded for, but again, we don't really need. This will go straight into our trade binder, and of course we get 4 copies of this, which is pretty good. Suru. Hina is another one that we definitely need. 3 cost, 5k, give up to one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn. This is going to be awesome. We can pitch it with stuff like our Sengoku from the Smoker Structure deck, and then bring it back with Rebecca for some stuff. It is going to be a little tricky to use Hina, especially since we don't have copies of Brook. Brook is really good with Hina since you can use Hina and then swing with Brook to KO a 5, and then 6 with the Smoker Leader, but unfortunately, we do not have that card yet. Hopefully we can combo it with stuff like Kobe, but for now we do need the Hina, so we're going to set those aside. We've got some full bodies, and Helmeppo is the last card that we actually need. On play, give one of your opponent's characters -3 cost during this turn, and it is a 2-drop. That is the most important thing about it because we can pull it off of the 2 from Gecko Moria, but we've seen that many times before. It's been a Lucci dominant meta, so we don't have to harp on that too much. We got some extra stuff, and then these can actually go into the trade binder. This is honestly a decent card, and if it doesn't move, potentially we can throw it in our deck. Up to one of your leader characters gains 4,000 power during this turn, then KO one of your opponent's active characters with a cost of 3 or less. Okay, so this is honestly really interesting because that interacts with Doflamingo quite well. In terms of using this to get out of a leader swing and then additionally still be able to pop the 2-cost Teach. So that's a resource that they don't have or they have to find again. Honestly, we'll consider it, but this might just be trade bait. And of course, banned card, Great Eruption. You were very missed. You are very missed. And then Whiteout, not notable. Navy HQ. Ooh, wait. Give one of your opponent's characters -1 cost during this turn. You may rest this stage. If your leader has Navy, give one of your Okay, so this is a on-play -2, basically, and a recurring -1. Honestly, we can throw this in if we have space. This is going to be one that we'll consider, so maybe we did get a whole lot more value than just the Hinas and Helmeppos. We do have some tech cards that we can throw in with Navy HQ and Shockwave. And then, so let's wrap this up and then go on to our Smoker Structure deck. We've seen that, we've reviewed cards in that before, so we can go through that a little bit faster and just talk about what we're going to be pulling out for our new Smoker list, as well as the PRB pack. Safe Scissors, always cut away. I like how you can always tell that the PRB pack is from a structure deck because it comes mashed down like that. Thankfully, it doesn't damage the cards, so we have that going for us. But yeah, I think that's just kind of funny. Now I edited this out last time, but I had a whole lot of trouble trying to... Oh, there's a pull tab over here, and I just didn't see that pull tab last time. And you know what? I still can't get into this. I might have to make another cut just to get this little pull tab out. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here we go. Thank you. I didn't even use the pull tab, but hey, all the cards are safe, so we're good. Since we are switching leaders, I think it'll be a little bit more worthwhile to talk about the Smoker leader itself. Dawn ×1, activate main, give one of your opponent's characters -1 cost during this turn. Then if there's a character with a cost of 0, this leader gains 1,000 power during this turn. So it's kind of like a black version of Katakuri where we get offense from 1 Dawn on our leader. Except we're also giving -1 cost to a character, so that's going to be really relevant for trying to pop stuff. And it's going to be pretty easy to get this, get a cost of 0 online. since a lot of decks play searchers and we can get those down. And especially in like Doflamingo, we can just lower their Perona, and then this will be online for a 7k swing on our turn. Alright, money shot number 1, Tashigi. We'll talk about this again since this is going to be more relevant. We can give a character -4 cost on play and then activate main trash a character with a cost of 0. So the fact that this says trash gets around a lot of stuff. So yeah, we get 2 of this card, of course. And ready? Money shot number 2. Deck Mommy Hina. Well, I guess it's less Deck Mommy Hina and it's more Deck Mommy Tashigi, let's be real. I'm not sure if we really want to play Hina. Of course, we have a lot of extra slots open since we don't have a full constructed deck. But Hina is still a really good card. It's not being played in Smoker as much as it's being played in Luffy, for example. But the fact that we still have access to Hina is pretty cool. So Hina there, Smoker, not going to be as relevant. But then Sengoku is the other card that we're after in here. So it reads, on play, trash 2 Navy type cards from your hand. If your leader has Navy, draw 3 cards. So that allows us to trash stuff like our Hina and then draw into stuff like our Gecko Morias, all of our non-Navy stuff, instead of trying to use brand new and then setting them to trash. So this is going to be a huge card for us, and that is the final 2 copies that we need. The rest of this we've gone over before. We do already have our playset of Kobe, so Suru we could probably throw in the trade binder. Hopefully we'll be able to trade that off. The rest of this stuff isn't really relevant. Okay, Ice Age will set aside, I guess. I mean, brand new, can we trade off brand new? Probably not, but at least it's relevant. Virgo's not really relevant. It would have been more relevant in like a green-black Perona with a Doflamingo Searcher, since this is also Doflamingo Pirates. It's like a double searchable 2k, but yeah. So this is what we're going to be rocking with from the Smoker Structure deck, and of course we do have our 1 pack of PRB to keep this opening interesting, and we do get a Dawn, so that's 1 Dawn further into our collection of Dawn. We've got Chopper, Ichiji, Inuarashi, Emporio Ivankov. Oh, nice! We've got the Sanji leader. That's pretty cool. Amaru, very nice. Newgate, also a very relevant card that we could probably trade off. This is going to be huge, actually. So, yeah, we're actually accumulating a lot of trade bait, even though we only opened the structure decks today. Nico Robin, we got that foiling on it, very nice. And then, Red Rock with the foiling. Our Dawn is going to be a, who is this? Magellan. Is that Magellan? Yeah, Magellan. So overall, pretty decent opening, but we're really here for the upgrades to our Smoker list.
Not only that, but we did get a few trades in before we started the week. So we did trade the Jinbei for 2 copies of Moria. That is going to be a huge boost to our deck, especially since we have a lot of things that work with Moria. We traded off the Newgate for a copy of Kuzan, which we will definitely use. And we did trade off the Full Art Neko that we got from PRB for some extra goodies. We got the Boa as well as the Hina.
So we are switching leaders from the Luffy to the Smoker. So that means there's going to be a lot of changes coming with it. But at the same time, there's also not a whole lot of changes coming with it, since we are still running a whole lot of the Black Navy stuff, as well as there's a lot of just good generic black support. And I think that's more of a conversation of whether or not black is just too overtuned for its color, but that's a conversation for another day. As I just said, we are running a whole lot of the Navy stuff, so of course we're going to have brand new to search all of it. We've seen this card. A new card to the list is the Sengoku, where if our leader is Navy, then we can trash 2 Navy cards from our hand and then draw 3 cards. It's a little bit different from brand new, since not only will it let us set up our trash with stuff like our 3-cost Hinas, but it'll also let us draw cards instead of searching for cards and sending the rest to the graveyard. So stuff like our Moria can be added to our hand as opposed to sent to the graveyard from brand new. So I really like Sengoku. I think it's going to be a really impactful piece in our Smoker deck, and I'm really excited to try it out. Let's go over our 2K lineup. We have Suru, that's going to stay. We've got Tashigi, of course she's going to stay, and we did round out our playset of T-Bones. We did use the 2 guaranteed rares, one from our 12 win and one from our 16 win, to get the last 2 copies of T-Bone that we needed. So we finally rounded that out, which feels really good. Of course, the whole reason why we want to even play Smoker in the first place is this Tashigi. It can cost -4 So it's already going to be really good into Doflamingo to be able to reduce that 4 cost to a 0 cost. And then activate main, you can trash a 4 cost or lower. So again, really good into Doflamingo. Also really good into black if they play Sabo on 5 Dawn, since we can 5 Dawn for Tashigi, lower the Sabo to 1 cost, 1 Dawn on our Smoker, lower it down again, and then it'll gain the extra 1000 power for the turn, and then send it to trash. It does not KO, it sends, so it's going to be really favorable into the black matchups. Let's go into some of the things that are going to be good for our Moria plays. We have the 2 Helmeppo. I don't know if we need to go up or down on Helmeppo quite yet, so I'm excited to see if I need to adjust this ratio or not. We have 3 Kobes. Kobe is going to be a mainstay at 3 for a while until we can get our hands on EB01 Brook, but that card is really expensive right now. I think it's floating around 30 bucks, which is just horrible. That card needs a reprint already, but we still can use Kobe to the same effect, but a little bit slower since Brook can also KO when attacking, so stuff like our cost-based Morias will still work with it, but for now, I think 3 Kobe is going to be really good, plus it works with our Sengoku, which is awesome. We do have 2 Hinas, one of them being the Judge Hina that we traded for. I don't think we need this at 2 right now. I think we can cut this down to 1 since, again, we don't have EB01 Brook. Our cost-based Morias aren't going to be as impactful, so I think we can cut that down. But I think Hina is going to be a good addition to our deck, especially if we can get a Jack to Stick. If we can get Jack to Stick, then that's going to be really good. We have 1 Borsalino and 1 Kuzan. We're definitely going to want to go up on the Borsalino, and then I think we'll stick with 1 Kuzan going forward, but these are some pretty good cards, especially in the Navy archetype, and they're going to be really impactful. I do have 1 copy of Hina in here. That was kind of like the 50th card. I didn't know what else to throw in, so we do have 1 copy of Hina. I generally think it's a little too slow for what Smoker wants to do. Since the turn it's played, the biggest value you're going to get is going to be able to put 1 Dawn onto your leader. It doesn't cost reduce or anything, so I think it's a little bit slower. Also, it doesn't have counter. So this was kind of like the filler slot until we can get our hands on some other stuff like Jack, for example. We have 2 Isho. We've seen what this card can do. I don't really need to go over it again. But the fact that we have Isho and Hina in the same list does mean that we can use Hina's effect to put the 1 Dawn on Isho to give a global -3. So there could be some favorable interactions with that, but in general, since we are only playing Hina at 1, it's not going to be as reliable. We could pull it off of Moria, and then just, you know, send it off to the graveyard with Sengoku, but that's a little bit more setup, but that is an interaction to make note of. The final Navy card is going to be the Ice Age. We're going to be playing it at 4. I did want to try and introduce the 2-cost event from the Black starter deck. A little bit of a memoir of our starter deck Luffy, but I generally think that card's pretty good. I have seen it pop up in some of the Eastern lists, so I did want to try it out, but maybe in another iteration of our list, especially once we can figure out what we do and do not need, like this Hina here and maybe another copy of Hina here, but for now, that's going to be the event lineup, just the 4 Ice Ages. Of course, Jack is going to be a really good card, especially in our current iteration of the list, since we do not have access to Brook quite yet. So being able to keep a Jack on board for when we want to do a value-based Moria, go into Rebecca, Hina, and then Helmeppo, we can pop some higher cost characters with our Jack. We do have the 1 Sabo that we traded for. We're going to try and maybe up that to 2. I don't know if we need much more than 2, but I do want to have a 3rd just in case I want to go up to that 3 copies of Sabo. We do have 3 copies of Rebecca, so that's going to be very consistent with our Moria. We're going to see it more often, so we have a lot more power plays with Rebecca, and we can even just use Rebecca hard play and then like Hina, and then still use its effect, and then like Kobe something, or maybe T-Bone, but yeah, having more copies of Rebecca is going to be really good. I do want to get that 4th copy eventually. And to finish the list, we do have 3 copies of Gecko Moria. I did trade into 2 of them, and I don't really know if I should have done that. I guess we'll find out with how many Morias we'll be getting from our PRB boxes, but we do need 1 more, so if we do pull 1 more Moria, we'll be able to use it. I think the cards in the Smoker list in general are going to have more favorable matchup into some of our harder matchups historically with our Luffy, especially with the Tashigi being able to just be a cheat code into Doflamingo and Lucci.
Time to play the game!
Round 1, and it's versus Mac, and he is playing the Yellow-Purple Pudding. So right off the bat, our opponent is going to use the leader effect to flip up 2 life and ramp 1 Dawn, and they are going to show the Newgate and the 10-drop Linlin. So obviously we don't like seeing that 10-drop Linlin there, but it's a resource that we can try and plan around since it's in life and it's not in hand, and we have knowledge about it. Our opponent is going to category that 1 life and then swing and then reveal a 10-drop and a 7-drop. Oh my gosh. So we really don't want to be facing this deck very late into the endgame, because that means they're just going to be spamming their Linlins, and we're not going to be having a good time. I strategically did not swing in with my leader until life, because I knew that that 10-drop would just advance to hand, and they're going to be on their 10 Dawn turn, so they're just going to be playing that 10-drop. But now that we have a well-established board, I am feeling more comfortable swinging into life, knowing that their opponent is going to have those Linlins in hand. And as long as I keep my board healthy and still apply enough pressure, I think I can close the game out before the Linlin spam gets out really out of hand. And I do play the Isho here, hoping to get a whole lot of counter out of hand, hoping for some 2Ks, but we do get a power card in that ace out of hand, so I'm feeling pretty decent about this, and looking at my board state, I think I will have enough to push for game next turn. I just need to make sure that I don't block with this Sabo and keep all the rest of my bodies up, and yes, he does play the last 10 drop, and that is going to be my last life, and he does get an extra life here, but I have 3 bodies to 2 life, so I'm pretty confident that as long as I don't flunder my math completely, I've got game, so I swing in, and that is GG's. Coming into round 2, it's versus Lance, and he's actually off of Moria and on to Doflamingo. He sees Perona on his 2-Dawn turn, which they love to see because they want to stack their deck, but we honestly don't mind it either because we can attach a Dawn to our leader, give that Perona -1 cost, and then get a +1k on our leader. Before I get too deep into the game, I do want to make a note that our opponent did get the sound loader for his leader, which is pretty cool. It doesn't do anything to actually impact the game, but when you press some buttons on it, it will play some sound clips and it will play the opening for one of the buttons, which is honestly pretty cool. And I was like, you know what, if you do go for game or if you make a huge swing, just press the button and we're just going to play the opening for it. Back to the game, however, I do use an Ice Age on the Jozu. I did have 2 Ice Ages in hand. They were kind of breaking my hand, and I really wanted to keep pace with my opponent, so a Tashigi is going to be overkill on it. That would have KO'd or sent a 9 cost to grave, but a 6 cost Jozu will have to do for now. Our opponent does overlap a little bit, playing the Boa Hancock, which rearranges the top 3, and then the Perona, which rearranges top 5, but honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter. I feel like his board presence compared to mine is going to be his biggest asset at this point of the game. And unfortunately for me, I don't have a whole lot going on in hand. I did use the Ice Age into the Jack to be able to remove a body, but as of right now, I do have a whole lot of 2Ks in hand, so they're not really able to produce a whole lot of tempo swings, but at least on terms of defense, I've got a whole lot. And since our opponent has slowed down the mid game enough, we are going to see that he is going to drop the 10-drop Kaido, being able to draw 4 more cards. So his hand's going to be really stacked, and it's going to be really hard to break through, especially as we try and push into the late game. Kaido having a huge stat line is going to be really threatening to our board. It's going to pretty much take out whatever he needs to on our board, or try and guarantee a life out of hand, assuming we don't have a blocker. And the fact that he has a whole lot of cards in hand means that if we try and swing into his board or into his life, he's going to be able to easily counter out of it, so it's not going to be super efficient, at least until we whittle down his hand. Knowing that, I think our win condition here is going to be trying to find an Ice Age to lower the Kaido and pop it with something like a Tashigi, and to swing into his board with whatever we have available. I don't think that swinging into his own board is going to be very impactful, given that he still has a lot of cards in hand and our resources in hand are starting to dwindle down. Looking at the board state, our opponent does have a lot more well-established board of a little bit more threatening bodies compared to our board, where we have a whole lot of weenies, a blocker, and we do have the Moria, but that is not going to be enough. We do see a whole lot of heavy swings here. We see the Kaido swing, the Jozu swing, and then the leader swing, then putting the Moria onto board, being able to grab a 2K from trash, and we're going to just be eating these or giving a whole lot of counter for them. And we do find the Ice Age into Tashigi to be able to remove the counter, but I think it's going to be a little too late. We did get the biggest threat off of his field, but unfortunately for us, he still does have very meaningful bodies on his board to be able to go in for game next turn. So yeah, we saw all the right pieces, but just at the wrong times of the game. We did find a lot of 2Ks in the beginning of the game, and then we did find the Tashigi and Ice Age a little too late, so our opponent's definitely got the game here, so that's GG's to Lance, and we're going to let him take this victory lap here.
I wait for the round. I was really worried about the pudding this entire time. Guess what? I just got been
So toxic.
Coming into round 3, we are versus Max, and he is piloting the Bonney leader. He is off of the Lucci and now onto Bonney. He did play a lot of Bonney in the set 7 era, then switched to Lucci for the set 8, the start of set 8, and now that we are in 8.5, he is back onto Bonney. Given that we're playing a black deck with a whole lot of removal, I think that we are going to be favored in this matchup, especially since we're going to be able to use a lot of our removal, especially our Tashigi, to be able to remove their Cavendish, so they're not going to get a whole lot of extra value by swinging with it. They're going to get its on play, but they're not going to be able to swing with it and get the extra 2 done every turn. Despite just saying that, we did not actually find any KO removal, so our opponent is going to be able to use that Cavendish swing in and then get 2 extra done as active. Coming back to my turn, I do play the Moria into Rebecca Helmeppo, and then Rebecca playing the Kobe, so that's going to be able to pop a 5 cost, and then I pass on that. I don't want to swing here because he's just going to use the leader effect to rest like our Rebecca, and then just block it with the Basil Hawkins for free, so if we swung in, that would have just been a net negative for our board. I start by swinging my Moria. You always want to swing with your highest power character first, and that's so you know that you're getting value out of your highest attack power. Even though your second highest is going to be rested, at least you're going to be getting that one huge attack in. And of course, after that, if you play any characters after, they won't be able to be rested since Bonney already used their leader effect. And we see our opponent does establish another Cavendish as well as a Rosinante blocker, so that Cavendish is going to be a pretty high priority target to get rid of on my turn. And fortunately for me, I do have the Weenie in Helmeppo to be able to swing into their searcher so they don't get a recursive search, and we're going to swing 7 with the Tashigi, then play a new Tashigi to be able to KO the Cavendish. So huge start off the field, but we are entering the late game versus Bonney, which does get very scary. They do play a whole lot of big bodies like the 10 cost Doflamingo, which we do see here, so they're going to be able to freeze our board, but in general they also play the 8 cost Eustace Captain Kidd, which could represent a pretty big threat to us, but fortunately we are playing a black strategy, so if we see something like an Ice Age, we can pretty much just sneeze on it with any sort of cost-based removal. And we do see a drop of the second 10 cost Doflamingo, which does hurt a little bit. But we are going to be able to swing with at least one of our Morias. He does give me the Basil Hawkins and then gives me counter. I'm not too sure why he gave me counter in addition to the Basil Hawkins, but we do use double Ice Age to be able to remove the Doflamingo on board. But that doesn't matter because he does drop another 10 cost Doflamingo, and wow, we have seen 3 Doflamingos back to back. Well, not back to back to back, but you know, 3 Doflamingos in one game is super crazy. I have to protect my board as best as I can, especially my higher cost bodies. Or not my higher cost bodies, my higher attack bodies, especially considering he's only got 1 more life that I need to crack through. Double blocker with one of them being the Rosinante does mean that his 10 costs are going to be sticking throughout my turn, so unfortunately he's going to have a lot of firepower when it comes back to him. I'm going to keep on putting on the pressure and trying to get as many of these blockers off the field, so when it comes back to me, that I'll be able to go for game. He does swing into my board and then drops the 4th 10 cost Doflamingo, but that's not going to be enough for me to go for game, so GG's Max. Round 4, and it is versus Josh, and he is piloting the Doflamingo today. Ignore the fact that he's got some mismatching sleeves on some of his main deck cards. There's no ill will behind it. He just picked up the deck, and we're pretty laid back about that kind of thing at our card shop. Regional, Treasure Cup, anything adjacent to that, yeah, we're going to be calling them out, but for something like this, just the locals, I don't mind. And right off the bat, we're going to see that our opponent is going to be super high rolling. He does play the first Jinbei, and maybe that is a forewarning of the later of the game, but the first Jinbei and then plays a second Jinbei, so he's already got a huge board established, and it's only my, 5 Dawn turn. And I'm going to try and minimize this board as best as I can. I do use the leader effect on the Sengoku to give my leader plus 1k, so swing 7k into one of the Jinbeis, and then I do use the Shigi to be able to pop the other Jinbei.
You seeing this guy? You teleported 3 of them to the top of the deck, man.
Yeah, so 3 Jinbeis, and on top of that, Moria into another Jinbei, swing, and then get another Jinbei out of life is going to be really bad for us. But fortunately for us, he is kind of lost in the sauce right now. He doesn't play anything off of his Jinbei, and then forgets to swing with his Mihawk, so he's not applying as much pressure as he could as Doflamingo. And that is one of the strengths of Doflamingo, being able to produce such a board at such a high speed and then putting a lot of pressure on. The 7-drop event does reduce a lot of my own pressure, but he also does not swing with a lot of his characters on board, which is definitely a misplay considering that I don't have a whole lot of offensive pressure. I'd have to allocate a lot of Dawn to my own characters to be able to swing into his characters. And I'm going to use this opportunity to try and pressure his life a little bit. I'm going to swing 6 and then 7, play the Rebecca, grab back the Kobe, play the Kobe, and then KO the Mihawk, so that's 1 threat off of the field. And our opponent's going to start his turn by using the Doflamingo leader effect.
Was that blind?
Yeah.
Did you blind that?
Yeah, so Perona or no Perona, as long as you roll with the punches, that's Doflamingo. It should be decent, right? So our opponent does play another Moria to be grabbing back another Jinbei, which is honestly brutal. That's going to be the 5th Jinbei of the game if he does play it down, but we're going to start applying some pressure here. We're going to be using the leader effect and Kobe to pop a Jinbei on board. And from here, I feel like I have a really good tempo right now. I've got a lot of characters on board, so I'm pretty much fine with swinging into his board, knowing that he's going to have to rebuild board, and if he does, then he's not going to be able to swing into a whole lot of my own board, so we're just going to be aggressively going into board here. And it doesn't really matter where his swings go, as long as I keep a healthy board up, and especially with a Rebecca blocker, it's going to be pretty easy to do that. I'll have enough bodies on board with enough Dawn to be able to go in for game. So here we go. Kobe gets that 1k from hand. The second Kobe is going to be a take, and then we're going to see a 7k swing with leader, and then the rest of the Dawn on brand new for game. It would have looked a lot different if he was more aggressive with his swings, but a win is a win. GG.
PRP? Oh, that means I got another Dawn. Ooh, very nice.
Pretty good.
And we're going to wrap up the day with some trades. I do trade the Yamato I just pulled for a copy of Akos Sabo. I think this might be pretty good into Doflamingo. And we do trade a Hina for the last copies of Gecko Moria and Borsellino. So we finished the day at 3-1 with an overall record of 19-11. I think this was a good first showing for Smoker, and I'm really excited to see how far we can develop this leader. I did make some progress on some of the bounties. In terms of banked cards, we are sitting on 7 commons and 0 rares. In addition to that, we also made some progress on one of the Cypher bounties. Again, stay tuned for the next episode for the full explanation. I promise it will all make sense. Thank you so much for watching, and please comment what you think about these new changes. I put a whole lot of work into them, and I want to know your thoughts. Are they good? Are they bad? Is it just all confusing? And while you're there, like the video and sub to the channel. Until next time, drink your water, pass out love, hugs, kisses, mwah. One more, mwah.